Good morning, friends. Welcome to the first weekly lecture of Samachar Manthan program. So, those who are old students, they must be knowing the pattern how we deal with this program. For the new one, you should watch the introductory lecture that is uploaded on the YouTube about what this program will offer. So basically, the idea is to make your concepts of current affairs very strong and to make it align with your static course preparation. So our idea is that by the next year, June, when this session of this program will end, you will not just have conceptual clarity, but you will also have written answers on all the current issues which are happening in this country and in the world, which are relevant for the UPSC. So what we do in this program is that we first start with the mains issues of the week, and then we move into the prelims issues of the week. On the mains issue, you will be asked, or there will be a small test which will be, the paper will be uploaded tomorrow, and you can attempt the paper within a week. So we'll first start. So in this week, we'll deal with important issues from 1st to 10th June. So the first important issue of this week is the government opens door for lateral entry. Now, this news you must have read on the newspapers that recently government has given advertisement in newspapers where they said that 10 posts of joint secretary level. So this post, joint secretary, actually it is the head of a wing of a ministry. It's a very important post. That is actually, joint secretary is the level from which the decision making part starts, because below that you usually implement the decision, but from joint secretary level you start taking part in decision making process. So it's a very important post. Now, most of the posts of joint secretary in India are administered by officers of IAS. Most of them are from IAS, and some of them are from All India Services, and some of them are from CSS, or the Central Secretariat Service. But the common factor is that all of them are government servants. They are not from outside the government. They are part and parcel of this government. So first time the government has introduced something like joint secretary level post, and it is available not just for the government servant, it is also available from outside the government, which means a professor of a university or a private sector executive, all of them, or an expert in any issue, scientist and etc., they can apply for the post, and they will be employed for 3 years, which could be extended for 5 years. But what the government has said, government has not prescribed any specific qualification. It just said that you had to be graduate, and it said in the advertisement that the government is looking for 10 outstanding individuals who can administer the post of this level. So this lateral entry thing, a lot of people must have been wondering that it's a very, very new concept. But yes, it's a new concept at the joint secretary level, but from 70s and 80s, government have been introducing, or government have been bringing individual or experts from outside the government to administer the government post. So we have example of people like Bimal Jalan, people like Montek Singh Alwalia, people like Sam Pitroda, people like Nandan Nilekani. All of them were technically, they were expert, they were economists, or they were technocrats, or they were professionals, or they were businessmen, and they were given very, very important posts. Like Montek Singh Alwalia was appointed once as finance secretary. Bimal Jalan was once India's RBI's governor. So all of them have been appointed to the post. The difference is that most of them are either scientists or they are economists. But for the first time, government has opened posts in different ministries like biotech, like commerce, like rural development, like agriculture. This is happening for the first time, that government has opened the posts for a wide variety of people, right? And there has also been support for lateral entry by many committees like first ARC, like Hota Committee, Surendranath Committee, ARC2, Alag Committee. All of them recommended that lateral entry should be introduced at the higher level of government service. So let's look at what are the or what is the why there is a need for lateral entry, or what are the arguments which are supporting lateral entry. So first of all, we all know that the civil service in India is inefficient. That's an established fact, that when this is no more a Nehruvian state. It's no more a state where the government is dominating all the areas of the economy. Now what we see after 1991 is a withdrawal state, where the state is withdrawing from most of the activities, and it is playing a role of an umpire kind of thing. But the civil servants, as observed by ARC2 also, that they are not willing to change themselves. They still want that old, Babu Shahi, that Mai Baap thing, that they have been used to. They're not allowing the power. They're not changing their mindsets, and that is hurting the government schemes. That is hurting our growth potential. That is hurting our development. Now, and one more thing with the government, officials, is that they have always worked for the government. They have never if there is a room, if government official or a bureaucrat sits here and the private individual sits there, the government person has never sat in that position. He do not understand the pain of that person. He do not understand how his policies are what are the consequences of his policies on that guy. He is unaware of that, right? And that is why there is a problem in policy making. Now when you allow the people from lateral, or the people from outside the government, from private sector, to join the government service, they would have a better position to make decisions, because they have all their life they have worked from across the table. They know how bad, how impractical the government policies are. Therefore, there will be a combined brainstorming of two kind of people: one who has always been a bureaucrat, and one who has always served in the private sector. And based on that combined effort, better policies would be made. The policies which would be more practical, which will be more, to the earth, which will be more grounded, they would be formed. And that would lead to better implementation, and that will ultimately affect the development process of the country. So that is one idea why we need a lateral entry. Next we have is, or the second reason why we need lateral entry, is that there is some flaw in the IAS recruitment process. So the IAS recruitment process involves two kinds of errors. One is type 1 error, and two is type 2 error. Type 1 error is recruiting incapable candidates. So I don't want to disclose a name, but I met one rank holder last year, and he is my kind of personal friend, and he scored 108 something in 100 ranks. He was between 100 to 200, and he scored 130 marks in ethics. But when you talk to him, his sole aim to enter the civil service is to earn money. That is his only aim. He said that he will earn money for 10 years or 15 years, and after that he will, quit his job and he will start his own business. That was his sole purpose of entering this of the civil services. And actually that guy said that I will prepare for IAS because in IAS you have more opportunities to earn money. So that was his motive behind preparing for the exam. So now UPSC has done an error, because it has done a type 1 error, because that person is not suitable to be selected, but because of their error he got selected. So this is a type 1 kind of error, and now that he is selected, definitely he will hurt the growth potential of the country. He will he will exploit the common man. Second kind of error is type 2 error, which is rejecting potential candidates. So a lot of potential candidates who have much more ability than those who are selected are not selected by UPSC because of some exam pattern, something, there is so much subjectivity involved in the exam that maybe at one subject or one paper he loses his marks. So therefore, because of this, lateral entry, how will lateral entry improve the process? Lateral entry will bring in, first of all, those people who have been rejected by UPSC, who were very, very potential people. And secondly, it will bring outstanding talents from outside the government who have excelled in their field. So this is this will definitely improve the scheme of the things. Third reason why we need lateral entry is because of bureaucratic inertia. So bureaucrats, because IAS, especially the IAS people, they are very kind of complacent people. They know that they will be, after 4 years they will become joint secretary, after 6 years they will become additional secretary, after 5 more years they will become, there is no kind of threat on their performance. They think that even if they will not underperform, the only thing is that they don't underperform, which means that there should be no inquiry of them. If they do just that basic job, they will get promoted in next 4-5 years to the superior level. So so that's why they don't want to learn anything. They don't want to improve their skills. They don't want to improve their efficiency. Now with lateral entry, they will face competition. They will face competition from experts, and this will force them to improve or to work on their skills. Because now they know that if I don't work, probably the post of Home Secretary or Finance Secretary or Agriculture Secretary would go to a scientist or an economist. Therefore, I have to prove my skills to my minister, to an expert body, that I also have the similar kind of domain knowledge. So it will ultimately benefit the administrative system, because the bureaucrats would work to improve their skills and efficiency. Fourthly, there is this generalist versus specialist debate. Now, it is it's a mockery of a system that a person who was a day before Agriculture Secretary, one day after he becomes Defense Secretary, and he takes decision of defense on the behalf of our army. So the generals and the lieutenant generals and his admirals work under him, and he decides how much of the material has to be procured, how much of the arms have to be procured, everything he decides. Right? So this is something of a bad thing. A person who was working in agriculture 2 days back, now he is handling defense. He hardly has any knowledge of defense. Just that because he has cleared an exam does not make him superhuman. You cannot make a person there are people in the army who are working there from last 35 years, 40 years. They have much more domain knowledge about defense than that person who is hardly been in defense from last 2 days. Same goes everywhere. Finance Secretary, Revenue Secretary. Even revenue secretaries and IAS who and people who are serving him are IRS people who have been working in that field from last 35 years, right? So with lateral entry and the kind of economy that we are facing, we are now facing a lot of challenges where you require special skills to handle them. I mean, the economy and the world is not so simple now that it was 50, 60 years back. And therefore, all these specialist posts required a specialist. You cannot handle, I mean, you cannot have a generalist administer these important domains. Therefore, once we have specialist, he would be in a better position to make better laws. He will be in better position to implement those laws. Now let's look at the other side of the argument, which is what are the challenges or arguments against the lateral entry system. Because any topic which we discuss in this program, we bring both sides of the picture. Because when you write an answer in your exam, you cannot just praise the system or you cannot just criticize the system. You will have to have a balance in your answer. You will have to present both sides of your argument. Only then your answer will be complete. Your conclusion could be anything. It could be in support of that topic, or it can be against that topic. That depends on you. But in your body, you will have to write both sides of the argument, especially in debatable topics like this. First is that there would be bureaucratic resistance and there will be institutional inertia of the civil services. So as you know that IS people have from last 70 years, they have not been able to give up their power. I mean, there is this proposal by IAS people that IAS, Indian Auditor Account Service, that CAG should be from their service, because CAG, I mean, they are the experts of auditing and accounting. But IAS people have not concluded that. IAS people are not willing to leave the post of CAG. Same goes with many other posts. Now with this also, IAS people will not, they will not yield their power so easily. They will not give up their power easily. They will not cooperate with the new entrants. And when they will not cooperate, the whole system will fail. Because you need cooperation of the secretary because the people who will be recruited are at the post of joint secretary. When the additional secretary who they will report will show hostility to them, if this additional secretary will not assign him any important work, then that whole little system model will fail. Because there are so many joint secretaries in Government of India. Some of them hardly have any work. If these joint secretaries are shifted to that wing by the secretary of the department, then he will not be able to use his potential, right? Next is the issue of favoritism or nepotism. This is the most important and strong argument against the lateral entry system, because right now we know that there is UPSC, and UPSC is with it is a fair, it established its credibility in last 65 years. There's never been any allegation on UPSC. It is conducting the exam very fairly. It is recruiting the people very, very fairly. But when this lateral entry thing will start, there will be influence of government in the selection of individuals. And probably we will have a situation where not experts, but party people who are close to the government, they would be appointed as the joint secretary. So there would be a lot of kind of people who are not given this MLA or MP ticket, or who are not being made minister. to kind of appease them, this joint secretary lolly will be thrown to them. That okay, we will not make you a minister or a member of any commission, but here is a good job for you. You can be appointed as joint secretary. So we have examples of that. We have guys like Sambit Patra who are made director of ONGC with no experience of oil and exploration. We have example of people like Mani Shankar Iyer who have been appointed as MP of Rajya Sabha, nominated MP because they were expert on something or something else. So that has been happening. So with this lateral entry system, this could even further this phenomena would be further given a boost. So instead of lateral entry being agent of change, we could have a situation where lateral entry would mean that people who are not capable of becoming IAS from back door, from back channel, they would be appointed as joint secretary. And if that will happen, that will be disastrous, because ultimately when there will be more people who will be appointed through this route, there will be less seats in UPSC. So it will definitely kill merit. It will kill merit if this thing happens. Thirdly, there is no service motive. So the people who are appointed from the private sector, they would use this post just to enhance their CV, because ultimately they don't have any training, they don't have any motivation. Usually many of the bureaucrats are they are very well motivated by the idea of public service, but when you bring these private individuals here, they would be more interested just in, they think that it will serve 5 years as joint secretary, probably it would give a boost to their corporate careers, and ultimately it will not benefit the system. Fourthly, it will promote private interest. Now let's understand this point with an example. Suppose a guy from Reliance was appointed as joint secretary exploration in the Ministry of Petroleum, right? Now that person knows that after 5 years he will have to go back to Reliance, because that is his mother organization. So as joint secretary exploration, he will definitely give some extra benefit to is not definitely, but most probably he will give some extra benefit to the Reliance, and that would that would increase the seeds of nepotism in the whole system, right? That would lead to the problem of nepotism. Next we have is next point is relevant experience. So this is what the bureaucrats say. They say that because we are transferred every 1-2 years, we don't develop domain knowledge. And if we are given this kind of, if we are in a ministry for 6, 7, 8 years, we will perform equally good as those people from the private sector do. So they say that rather than lateral entry, what you can do is that you can fix a domain of these bureaucrats, that this guy will stay for 10 years in Ministry of Finance, this guy will stay 5 years for Ministry of Defense, so that he develops and domain knowledge about that ministry or topic. And lastly, this is a point raised by a lot of activists, that what will happen to reservation? Now, this is also a problem, because this is a contractual job, and in contractual job there is no provision of reservation. And if in future most of the people would be appointed from lateral entry mechanism, then it would mean that there would be less number of SC, STs and OBCs at the top layers of the government. Already they are underrepresented. With this, they will be further underrepresented. So a lot of activists are saying that this lateral entry system will kill the idea of reservation. Now, Now that we have seen both sides of the argument, how should we write an answer if there is a question asked on lateral entry? Should we strictly reject it or should we accept it? So we should have when you have to write both sides of your argument, and in the end, at the way forward thing, you will have to conclude your answer with a balanced argument. So balanced argument could be that lateral entry is the need of the hour for sure, and the reasons we have seen in the argument part. But we have to ensure that the system is foolproof. So what we can do is that we can have an autonomous commission which will have people from different fields, experts, some people from the government, and that autonomous commission will select the candidates. And the interference of government on that autonomous commission should be zero, like we have in UPSC. Right? There should be zero interference of government on this autonomous commission, so that they can select the best candidates, the people who are just selected on the basis of their merit and not because of any other consideration. Secondly, what we can do is, because if we want to give this lateral entry thing a chance, we will have to weed out inefficient officers. So what we can do is that at least 25% of non-performing IAS officers should be mandatorily retired after 15 years of service, right? Because 16 years is the time you need to become joint secretary, and if you weed them out in 15 years, these 25% you can select from outside the government. So, but the IAS officers who should be mandatorily retired for non-performing, there should be a proper assessment for that. Proper ACR, something better than ACR should be developed. Based on that, they should be mandatorily retired. This will also benefit in one other way. It would create a competition among IAS officers to perform better, because they know that their job is in threat if they don't perform, right? So this is all about this topic, lateral entry. This ends the first topic, which is government opens door for lateral entry. Let's move to the next topic, which is Indo-Indonesia relations. So Prime Minister Modi recently visited Indonesia and he signed a number of agreements. That is why we are taking up this topic. So let's first, what we do in every IR topic is that we first give you a background. I first give you a background about how things were historically and from last 60 years, and then we move to the contemporary scenario, because the idea is that you should be aware with the background, because without that you won't be understanding if you read the newspaper, you won't be understanding why this is happening. So because a lot of the things of the past, or a lot of the things at present are linked to the past. So India and Indonesia, historically we had very good kind of relations, because it is from India that Hinduism, Buddhism and Islam went to Indonesia. So Indonesia had its own tribal religion, and it is from India that all the three prominent religions that are there in Indonesia went. And Indian traders, if you read the history books, Indian traders have been visiting Indonesia from last many years. We had the island in Indonesia called Bali, which is 90% Hindu. Our epic texts like Ramayana and Mahabharata are very famous in Indonesia. There is Lord Ganesha in one note in Indonesia. And there is also the name of their national airlines is Garuda. Also their language, Javanese, is very much inspired by Sanskrit. even the words, I mean, in Indonesia, the name of the people are still very much derived from Sanskrit. So you have the ex-president of Indonesia, whose name was Sukarno Putri Megawati, and his name was because she was the daughter of uh, late leader Ahmad Sukarno. So her name was Sukarno Putri Megawati. That is how much inspired by Sanskrit Indonesia is. Also, their temples like Prambanan temples and other, they are built in Gupta style, and they are Hindu temples. So even after this cultural thing and all everything, when India became independent, Nehru had a great dream of Asian and African solidarity. He wanted that because the Asian and African countries are poor, they are all have been colonized, so we should all unite, because when we will be united, we will present a strong block to the Western worlds or the Western powers. So just before independence in 1946, if you know about the World War, in World War II, so Indonesia was ruled by Dutch, and in World War II, Japanese captured Indonesia, and after that, the Dutch rule came to end. But after the war, when Japanese got defeated, the Dutch powers, they again tried to capture Indonesia, and the British government in India, they supported these Dutch power, and they sent the forces of Indian army to kind of to ensure that the movement of Indonesian nationalists are suppressed. So Indian nationalists at that time, the INC and the other, they kind of protested that our army should not be sent to Indonesia for killing the mandate of the people. So we kind of, and then in 1948, when there was ARC or Asian Relations Conference, which was organized by Nehru, the issue of Indonesia was raised strongly in that platform. After independence of India and Indonesia, Ahmad Sukarno, who was the first president of Indonesia, and Nehru developed a very good personal friendship and bonding, and both of them were, they bought the idea that we should not be part of any bloc, either the capitalist bloc or the communist bloc. We should remain non-aligned, and that is how NAM was born. And in the origin of NAM, both Nehru and Sukarno played a very important role. Just like Nehru, Sukarno was also a fierce secularist, he was nationalist, he was also socialist. So therefore both of them had a common kind of agenda and program. But after the death of Sukarno, India and Indonesia, the relationship between India and Indonesia started drifting from each other. So why did that happen? We will look into the next part. So after Sukarno, Suharto came to power, and Suharto was a very, very, he was a capitalist, he was a fierce capitalist, he wanted to, develop very close relations with the West, and therefore Indonesia became part of SEATO, Southeast Asian Treaty Organization, and India became closer to Soviet Union. And India, to in theory, it remained part of NAM. So therefore, ideological differences emerged between India and Indonesia. Also, Suharto was very, very anti-communist, and its role or India's close friendship with Soviet Union under Indira Gandhi kind of alienated Indonesia. It looked India with suspicion, because Indira Gandhi herself was leftist, and her closeness with Soviet Union made Indonesia uneasy. Therefore Indonesia became close to Pakistan, and therefore in 1965 and 1971 war, Indonesia supported Pakistan rather than supporting India. Also, in 1980s, when India started to look at Andaman, when it started to understand the strategic seriousness and significance of Andaman, and it started to develop its naval and arm base in Andaman, it I mean uh, it made Indonesia uneasy again, because Indonesia, or Sumatra, is just 80 kilometers from Andaman. Sorry, 80 miles from Andaman. Therefore, India's defense activities in Andaman also alienated in Indonesia from India. But things started to improve from 1990s. So in 1990s, as you know, that significant things happened. First of all, Soviet Union collapsed. Secondly, India started a new policy of look east policy, where it started to develop close relationship with all the countries of Southeast Asia, and Indonesia being the biggest of them, we started to improve relations with Indonesia also. So in 1997, India took several steps, like it participated in multilateral forums such as ASEAN Regional Forum. It also established Indian Ocean Rim Association, in which Indonesia was member. Uh, India also established Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, of which Indonesia is a member. We also started joint naval exercises with Indonesia in 1989. Sorry, in 1991, and it was there in the Andaman Sea. So things, started to improve in last 2-3 decades. So let us now look into the current economic and social relations between India and Indonesia. So when we talk of economic relations, Indonesia is the second largest trading partner in ASEAN. Also, bilateral trade between India and Indonesia is $20 billion and is expected to reach 50 billion by 2020. India imports a large amount of oil palm from Indonesia. Also, India is one of the biggest investor in Indonesia, and we have invested around $15 billion in Indonesia. When we talk of social relations, so around 1 lakh people of Indian origin live in Indonesia, and also Odeon University of Bali has a strong department of Indian culture and religious study. So why would uh, good relations between India and Indonesia would benefit each other? Let's look into this aspect now. So first of all, look at the strategic importance. See, Indonesia has access to the Strait of Malacca, right? It is the largest archipelago in that Indian and Pacific Ocean, and both countries require each other, because India requires Indonesia for countering the Chinese influence in the Pacific area. We require close cooperation within Indonesia. We also require close cooperation with Indonesia for managing the Strait of Malacca. Now, Strait of Malacca, as you know, if this is India, this is the this is Indonesia, this is Malaysia, this is the Strait of Malacca, and most of the oil in the world goes from there, right? And India has Andaman here, which is close to the Strait of Malacca. If India can cooperate with Indonesia, then we can have access to these choke points. And tomorrow, if India has bad relations with China, we could just close the thing. Our navy could just close the entry of Chinese vessels here, and then China will suffer very badly, right? And secondly, we require Indonesia because in the Far East, in the Pacific area, China is having this expansionary policy, and therefore close relations with China will mean that India would have access to these important naval ports like Lombok, like Sunda, and when Indian Navy will have access to that ports, it could check the expansionary designs or the activities of the China in the South Pacific region. Why does Indonesia require India? Because Indonesia also have a border dispute with each other. They have a sea dispute with each other. They have an island dispute with each other. So therefore, Indonesia also requires India to counterbalance the increasing Chinese domination in the Pacific region, in the Indo-Pacific region. Right? So both require each other. Indonesia requires India to counter the Chinese. India requires Indonesia to play an important role as a security provider in the Indo-Pacific region and to check the activities of China in the Indo-Pacific region. Because see, ultimately what China is doing, China is expanding in the Indian Ocean. And Indian Ocean was always our backyard. So India is very much ambushed by the fact that China is kind of developing its base in Indian Ocean. Now, how can we counter China? If we want to counter China, what we should do is we should play the same game. If you are increasing your influence in Indian Ocean, we will increase our influence on your background or on your backyard, which is the Indo-Pacific region. And for that, we require close cooperation with Indonesia. That is a must. Next is why it is beneficial. Second is socio-cultural. So just like India and Indonesia is also a multi-diverse, multi-ethnic, multi-religious country. It has largest population of Islam in the world, but it follows a very moderate form of Islam, and it has been a very good model of how a multilateral or a multicultural state should behave, because its constitution is secular. It has always treated its minorities with respect, and it's same like India. India is multicultural, it's secular. We have also been following the policy of live and let live. But over the last few years, both in Indonesia and in India, there have been a rise in the what you call as intolerant forces in both these countries. So both these countries could share their expertise with each other. Both of them could share how they have controlled this, how they have treated and everything. This they can share with each other. They can share their positive experiences. They can share the areas where they failed, so that the other country can learn a lesson from them. Third is Economic. So Indonesia has a lot of oil. It has a lot of oil palm. It has a lot of other things, which is beneficial for India. And India is a big market for that. And Indonesia is a very fast growing economy, so it provides a big market for Indian manufacturers. It also provides a very good market for investment purposes. Indian investors can invest in Indonesia, and this will make these countries both. I mean, this will benefit both the countries. Fourthly, India can learn tourism practices from Indonesia, because Indonesia has Bali, which has perhaps the largest number of tourists in all Southeast Asia after Thailand. And so Indonesia can share the expertise with India how to develop a same kind of model in India. Now let's look at the contemporary scenario, which is PM's visit to Indonesia. So just like a lot of important visits, nothing much happened in this visit also, except one thing, which is that and it did not happen in the visit, it happened just a month before. And Indonesia has offered India to, or it has granted India access to its Sabang port. So where is Sabang? Here is India. Here is Indonesia, and here is Sabah. Here is Andaman. So it has granted India access to Sabang port for the development purpose. So it wants India to develop the Sabang port. Now, Sabang is very close to the Strait of Malacca. So if Indian Navy would have presence in Sabang port, it would be of great strategic importance to us, while we have already discussed in the earlier part of the lecture that how we will be able to choke the Strait of Malacca, how Indian Navy will have greater presence in Southeast Asia and Indo-Pacific region. Next we have is, so in this visit, India and Indonesia have agreed to elevate their ties to comprehensive strategic partnership, and they have also signed 15 agreements, including one to boost the defense cooperation. And both these countries also called for freedom of navigation in the strategic Indo-Pacific region. Compensation to be paid during land acquisition, calculation of funds required for climate mitigation. It will help the government in deciding a lot of policy decisions. Let's move to the next topic, which is, should the office of governor be scrapped? Now, this is again a very, very important topic, because we have seen recently in Karnataka how the office of governor played a biased role, where instead of inviting coalition, which had numbers, everybody knew they had the numbers, he invited party, a single largest party, which had the maximum number of seats, but it never had numbers. Plus, it gave 15 days time to them to prove their majority. It was considered as a clear-cut case of politicization of the office of governor, and that is not. It's not the first time it's happening. It's been happening since the UPA, and before that also. It's not a thing which is started now. It has always been being done from last 70 years. So what is the role of governor exactly? I mean, its main role is to ensure that the government It functions according to the constitutional norms. It has a role in the formation of the state. Plus, the third role is to see that the government is not passing any bill illegally. It reserves some bill for the consideration of the president. So why should the post of governor be scrapped? First, let's come to this side of the argument. So firstly, it has become a retirement home for the politicians. Excuse me. Any politician which gets defeated in an election, if its party is in power and center, he is accommodated at the governor position. So we have examples of Sheila Dikshit, who was made the governor of Kerala. We had example of Anandi Behan, who was accommodated as governor in other states. This is a norm that is happening, that politicians who have become old and who the government feels that they would create problem if they are not accommodated, they are sent to a position of Raj Bhavan. Now, this is how could a person who has stayed all his life in a party be neutral? So that is a problem of neutrality here. So that is the next reason why it should be scrapped, that there is been incidences of non-neutrality of the post of governor. So as a head of the state, it should be, theoretically they should remain completely above party politics. They should be completely neutral. But what we have been seeing is a completely different story. It got repeated in Uttarakhand. It got repeated in Arunachal Pradesh. It got repeated a decade back in Jharkhand. All of these people, they tried their level best. It's got repeated in Goa, in Manipur. All of them actually, the thing is that governor thinks, now that I am appointed, my job is to ensure that my political party should come to power by hook or crook. That is because he knows that if he will not do that, he will be probably sacked or he will be transferred. So, because he is embedded to an ideology from last 40, 50, 60 years. And that is very tough for him to become neutral suddenly. Right? And that is what is happening. That is creating constitutional crises. That is making mockery of our constitution. In all these, we have just forgotten the example of Delhi, where there is this problem of LG being not, they have so many allegations against LG, who has not been allowing the elected government to work. Next is that circumstances have changed in the last 70 years. So when the post of governor was created, at that time India was a nation in the making. There were incidences. There were a lot of states like Tamil Nadu who wanted to separate from India. The integration process was not complete. Therefore, the center thought that if its nominee would be there in the state and it would keep a check on these visionary activities of these states, it would be good for the process of national integration. But now, after 70 years, we are actually a nation. The nationhood is like we are a confident nation. Now there is hardly any state where there is this problem. Perhaps you can have governor in few of the states which have some problem, like J&K and Northeast, but in rest of the states, this post should be scrapped because they are now completely, they are completely well integrated in Indian Union. There is no uh, you know, divisionary tactics in those states, right? So after, so it may be the post may be required in 47, but now the requirement is very low. Next, we come to the argument that why do we need the post of governor? So, first of all, if there will be no post of governor, how will the government will be formed? If suppose there is no party which got the majority, who will invite them? Who will decide which party to call for oath taking? I mean, this will be very tough. So, for government formation, we require the governor. I mean, the governor has to apply his mind to ensure that which political party would create a stable government in the state. Secondly, government has a very important role to play in ensuring the legal validity of laws passed by the state legislature. I mean, he has to ensure that the laws passed by the legislature are according to the principles of the constitution, right? So this is also a very important job for which we require governor. Thirdly, we need this post to keep an eye over state government that they are adhering to the constitutional values. And fourthly, it has an important job to act as a bridge between center and the state. And lastly, in some states, government has an important constitutional duty to ensure development of autonomous region or the backward region like we have in Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka, Northeast, where the governor has a special duty to see that these areas are being developed. So, what is a way forward? I mean, should we just scrap if this kind of question comes in the exam? Would you say that yes, it should be scrapped, or should? I mean, you can take your own decision. That is your personal opinion. If I would have been an aspirant, and if I would have been the person who would be writing the answer in this question, I would have balanced in a way that I would have said, okay, I would have given both sides of the argument. In the way forward, I should have I would have written that mere misuse of a post would not account to that. If there is a misuse of a post, that doesn't mean that that post is unimportant and it should be scrapped. Governor has a very important role to play, as we have discussed in the above points. I mean, we need governor for acting as a bridge for state formation, for ensuring that the the state government is adhering to the constitutional values. But we cannot allow status quo also. We need to change some things. We need to bring a reform in the institution of the governor. Therefore, these are the following suggestions which need to be implemented to ensure that the post of governor is becomes effective again. So these are the suggestions which I would like to give. Firstly, these recommendations I have collected from a lot of googling, a lot of committees, a lot of articles. So first is that the post of governor should be reserved for non-political appointees, and Supreme Court should lay down clear-cut law how the governor would act when there is a fractured mandate. First suggestion is that non-political person should be made governor. And secondly, Supreme Court should lay a clear-cut law which will see how would the governor act when there is a fractured mandate, so that its discretionary power is completely eradicated. Thirdly, we should ensure that his appointed process should be free and fair. So for appointment of governor, there should be a national panel which should be constituted, and that should include people from the opposition, the chief minister of the state, the judiciary, the high court chief justice, people from civil society, and the people from the government. So this panel should finally select the name of the governor. This would ensure that the governors are selected who are people based on their merit, not on the basis of how much close they are to the incumbent government. Also, in case of removal, like president, there should be impeachment process passed by the state assembly, which will finally remove the governor. So this will ensure that he has a security of tenure. So he would then act impartially. Because right now he knows that if he takes any decision which alienates the central government, he would be removed any day. Also, as far as the reserve bill is concerned, it should be only used in a very rare circumstances, because governor always resort to reserving the bill. It should be used in a very, 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 very rare condition, and when it is used, it should be made mandatory that he would take the advice of the High Court, right? Only then he can reserve the bill, a bill which is passed by the state assembly. And lastly, the recommendations of Punshi and Sarkaria Commission should be implemented, those recommendations which were with respect to the governor. Let's move to the next topic, which is this is again a very reoccurring topics. So recently, NASSCOM has said that India is the fifth biggest generator of e-waste after China, US, Japan, and Germany, and it said that Maharashtra contributes maximum to the generation of e-waste, and it also said that out of total e-waste generation, only 20% is recycled, which is a very, very less amount. And there is no record for the remaining. For the remaining 80%, there is no record where the e-waste is dumped, and there is no record in India. So first of all, we should discuss what is an e-waste. So e-waste is typically, it includes discarded computer monitors, motherboards, cathode rays, mobile phone, chargers, headphones, LCDs, plasma TV, AC, anything, any electronic item which you use when its term is used, when its life is completed, and then it becomes a waste. Then becomes a waste. So this is called as an e-waste. Now, what are the harmful effects of e-waste? So first of all, they contain large number of toxic materials or hazardous substances like mercury, arsenic, and when these e-waste are dumped, they pollute the soil also. So in landfills, when you go to landfills, most of the poisonous material like arsenic and mercury, the source is e-material. Sorry, the source is e-waste which is dumped. So, and these uh, metals can cause you a serious problem, health problems, because prolonged exposure to them could affect your nervous system, your brain, your kidney. It can cause respiratory problems. It can create lung cancer. It can create skin elements. Lot of these problems are done, or they lead to lot of these problems. Also, since two-thirds of the workers are in unorganized sector, the workers who are dealing with the e-waste, there have been this study which proved that most of them had this breathing problem thanks to the exposure to the e-waste. So what is an e-waste disposal policy in India? So in case of India, we have this e-waste management rules which was passed in 2016, and it laid down a concept of extended producer's responsibility, which means the producer or the manufacturer is responsible for the collection and for the proper use or proper recycling of the e-waste. It also said that in the first 3 years or in the first 2 years after the rules would be formed, 30% of the discarded electronic equipment would be disposed appropriately by the producer, and that number would increase to 70% in the first 5 years. So when we have this e-waste disposal policy, good policy, why does not taking place? So there are a number of reasons for that. Firstly, these laws, these regulations are not implemented in letter and spades. There have been rules, there have been good rules, but there is lack of implementation of rules. Secondly, the producers in India, they do not have any adequate information on their website regarding e-waste management. If you go to these websites of Samsung, LG, you won't find any information on e-waste management, how they are doing it, right? And also the customer care. So I did it last year, I guess. I actually, my AC was, it was waste, it was dumped, it was an old AC. I called the customer care executive. I said, I want this to be discarded. And he had he had no idea about this. I mean, he said he was completely unaware of how e-waste management process would be done. And then he kind of shifted the call to a senior, and senior was also unaware. So even after the rules, the e-waste management, the call center executives and the executives of the company, they are completely unaware how to implement that e-waste policy, how to take that AC from my house. They are unaware of that. And thirdly, India being a very vast country, it's not feasible for a company to take back all the e-waste which is discarded. It is not feasible. It is not economically feasible. It is not physically feasible for a large country like India that a company would take these e-waste material from your doorsteps. It's impractical technically. So what should be the steps we should take to improve the situation? We will look into that. So first is that we should, we have a vibrant informal waste gathering sector, which believes in door to door gathering of e-waste, and we should use them. We should first of all we should skill them, and we should integrate them with the formal e-waste management system. That is the most pragmatic thing we should do. So we should integrate informal waste gatherers with the formal system. Probably the original company would pay them that, okay, we'll pay you fixed salary. Your job is to collect these discarded e-waste from each and every home and bring it to us. And secondly, they should be skilled, because of lack of skills, they discard the waste unscientifically, which creates the problem of pollution. Also, one very important thing which we should learn from the Norway model. Now, what is a Norway model? This was actually, I read it in Down to Earth magazine. It came out in Down to Earth magazine, I think 1 year or 2 years back. So, how does the system in Norway works? Let us understand that. So Norway also had the same problem of e-waste few years back, and they also have the same laws like the EPR laws or the extended. These EPR laws were also there in Norway, but still they were not able to. I mean, the problem was not solving. So what they did was they created a rule. They said that they will establish take back companies in different parts of Norway. And these take back companies, their job would only be to scientifically collect and dispose the e-waste which is generated. So they said that all the companies in India, all the companies in Norway which manufacture e-waste which produce electronic goods and or which import electronic goods from abroad, they would be the member of these take back companies, which would mean that they would pay annual fees to these take back companies, right? And these take back companies, from that annual membership fees which it gets, it would create proper infrastructure of collection and disposal of waste. Now, these take back companies would not be just like anybody. If, for example, tomorrow Ambani comes and says, I will establish a take back company, please do it. No, they would be this take back company for their formation, to get license, they would have to fulfill 50 criteria. 50 criteria are there which they have to fulfill, plus they have to present a solid plan to the government that this is how we will dispose the electronic waste. And a third party would then give, they would also monitor them, and finally they would give their approval to the government. This third party would be an independent environmental organization, right? Then after this process, these take back companies, they get license. So there are like 10-15 take back companies in Norway, and the role of the manufacturers of electronic goods is very, very limited, because this is the problem in India. These electronic companies don't have infrastructure to collect, and they don't have specialization also in collecting and disposal of waste. So therefore, their job is just to pay annual membership fees to these take back companies. Rest take back companies do. Take back companies have their networking in each mohalla. They have their own people. They collect the waste and then they do the scientific disposal of that waste. So, what do we mean by hate treaty? Hate treaty was in news actually from last 6 7 months. It has been news continuously. There have been some debates also on Rajya Sabha TV or all. Let us first understand what is hate treaty. So, suppose I am in India and I am a girl and I got married to an American NRI Indian citizen. I mean American of Indian origin. And I go to US, I settle with him. Then after 4 5 years or 2 years I have a child, fine. After next 4 5 years I have some problem with my husband and we got divorced. Once we got divorced, if I take my children back to India, this treaty prohibits that. This treaty says that it uses the term known as habitual residence. Habitual residence is a place where the child normally he is living. So it's a place where he used to live before the problem started between my parents, between his parents. So if in this case, habitual residence would be US. So if and country has signed this treaty, then that woman will have to come back promptly to US where the case of or where the case with respect to custody would take place. So the case would be decided in the country which is the habitual residence of the child. Right? So that lady cannot come to any or she cannot go to any other country in the world till the case is over. Till the case is over, she will have to stay in US. If she goes to any other country, it is considered as an abduction under this treaty. And therefore, you have to promptly come back to the habitual residence, which in this example is US. So this convention applies to only children who are under the age of 16. So why is India opposing this treaty? I mean, what is wrong with this treaty why India is opposing? So India is opposing for a number of reasons. Firstly, see, in India's case, India is not happy with or is not comfortable with the word abduction. Because abduction, India says is a misnomer. Because no parents will abduct their own child. Out of care, out of his or her well wish, they do this thing. They actually take the child to a safer place. So this word abduction we are not comfortable with. Second thing is that it will worsen the condition of Indian women. How? Let us explain. So suppose, let's continue the same example. A is an Indian lady who is married to B, who is an NRI of Indian origin or who is an American of Indian origin. Now she has a very, very exploitative, very, very kind of, domestic violence and very, very oppressive marriage with B. Now after the child is born, they are divorced. A will take back his child back to India. Right? But if India will sign the treaty, A will have to again go back to B to fight the case for legal battle. Now, first of all, a lot of Indian women are not financially secure. So the burden of again booking the flight ticket and everything is very, very high. Then she will go again to US, which a country where she knows nothing, she has no help, and there she will fight the lonely battle for child custody against the husband. And it will worse. She has already suffered a lot. After signing the treaty, she will have to suffer again, fighting a case in an alien country where she don't know any laws and anything. that will make the condition of the woman more worse. That is why India is opposing this treaty. That's why we are not signing the treaty. Third is it could be used as a blackmail against alimony. So as you know that when there is divorce and if wife is not financially secure, the husband has to pay her an alimony. And usually because of this, the husband usually blackmail them that if you ask for alimony, we will invoke this thing, this treaty, and then you will have to come back to US again. And many women, they know, because they know the burden of this, going back again and fighting a case, they kind of accept that they will not claim any alimony. And lastly, if there is dispute between the local Indian court and the foreign court, whose verdict would be final? There is a problem in that also. That is also an issue, right? So that is why India has again refused to sign this accord. So this ends the...
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update from Civil's Daily.